Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Challenge 40 Battle of the Arrows or RHAP podcast for episode 8. I am Brian Cohen. With me, as always, is my co-host, Ali Lasher. Ali, how are you?
I am good, perhaps good, not great, but this how the season is going now. No, just kidding. How are you?
I'm good. Not great with the season. Yeah, I don't know. I was very excited at the end. I was expecting a big twist, as I assuming everyone else was, but we're not. But it was still a pretty good episode, I thought. It was actually the way the daily went with the intrigue. There was some interesting decisions made, so this was a good one.
I agree. I was underselling where I'm at when I said good, not great. I think I was a little bit bummed at myself as we were recording last week because I was like, oh, I feel like I was a little low energy. I'm a little down this season. Like, who really needs that? Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I have to live my truth. Like I'm here living my truth. But I do think how we felt was completely mirrored by at least our audience,
Yeah.
So I think we all universally kind of were like, are we in a slump? And last week's episode kind of hit that low note. I do think we have bounced back here. I'm still optimistic that maybe we'll get some sort of twist next week, but I thought this elimination especially and everything leading up to it was like level 1 challenge, like not a dry eye in the room on the elimination. And I've only had my 2 eyes in the room, but I really, really was like inspired by this episode. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
back. I'm back in. I'm very curious though to see what happens next week.
Yeah, I'm also hoping because obviously we see Derek in another very close elimination. I hope there's not controversy popping up about the timing of when Corey finished versus Derek. I hope that we don't need to go to the videotape and have extra podcasts about who clearly won, but hopefully that's in the clear. But yeah, I think we got lucky with the way who was straight into elimination, who was the winner. I think this could have been a very boring episode if Era 2 or Era 3 had won. So we got a little fortunate there. But I was hoping they could have pulled the Costanza and like go out on top with this format. And I feel like next week we're going to be dropping maybe even further down the rut. I don't know what they're going to do with Rachel by herself. She's doing a side quest. I don't know. It's giving the season when they randomly had like an extra person and they just like sat out of the week and it was like, what the heck are we doing here? And then why is Rachel just like doing something else? I don't know. I guess I can't rip them for something I don't know what they're going to do yet, but that also feels very me, or I don't say us, me to do. So I'm going to say me to do, but we'll see. I don't know. But this one was good.
Yeah, we'll cross that complaint bridge when we come to it. Let's talk about episode 8. While we have it. Good while we have it. good, maybe not great next week. But I actually thought it was a good use of, I've been tracking the use of like the frame clip. And
Yep,
I was
it's in
like,
my head
this
now
one
too.
actually made sense. Like this one I actually liked.
This was probably the most foreshadowing one of the. I mean, they basically set up what the daily was going to be with Derek. Basically 1-on-7, or I think it was like 1-on-3 in the flashback, but 1-on-7 or whatever here in this daily. Almost the exact same thing with the screens, and they had to knock each other out. It really set up what was about to happen.
Yeah, so I like that. And another thing I think we've been tracking is like Casey complaining about Jenny in the confessionals. And I just have another complaint myself about Casey's complaint. I'm complaining about the complaint.
Love it.
Like, she's like, Jenny's such a rookie. Like, obviously she has no connection. She never talks game. Like, ugh, so annoying that she thinks like she deserved to be saved, like based on the basis of her team and not on the basis of her connections. Casey came in with good friends in a wave of Big Brother and then locked in with like one of the most well-connected veterans of the challenge. Don't come here acting like, oh, you really worked hard for these social connections. Like, yes, Casey has a good social game, but it's extremely irritating for me to hear Casey lecture behind Jenny's back about this, especially when Jenny's on a team. So of any format, to be able to kind of like take your relationships for granted and think your team has your back just by virtue of being on the team. I mean, that's working for Aviv. Like, why wouldn't that work for Jenny?
Yeah, the Casey of it all is very frustrating because not only that, like this is all we're seeing from Casey is her complaining about people in confessional and not doing it in person. We see it even later. I think it was like about the Corey and Josh blow up. Casey doesn't get involved in that situation, but just has a side note to give in the confessional. And that's like the worst type of reality TV person from an entertainment standpoint of just giving the quip in the confessional and not escalating a situation more and giving the 2 cents and making it go to a different level. So like Casey, say something to Jenny. Like she's in the room, say something like, Jenny, if you want to be better, maybe you should start forming relationships and have that be like a situation. But instead she just stays there for the confessional and it's just so boring and bland. But I guess that's kind of why Casey is able to go so far, because it is smart for her not to do that. But from an entertainment perspective, it's quite boring for us.
No, totally agree. The one confessionalist that I'm finding extremely entertaining when they give him airtime is Nehemiah. When Nehemiah explains like the energy of Era 2 as like a band that's breaking up, but we're like still playing the hits because that's what the people want. Like, I was like, that is what they're doing. Like, they are kind of a broken team. We've been saying that since the preview coverage. Like, how is this team gonna like work together? Or maybe that was Era 3.
No, Era 3 definitely all hate each other, but Era 2, there was also some stuff brewing.
Yeah, so like, but that they are succeeding, and we see Laurel and Cara work together in this daily. Like, they're getting through this against all odds.
Yeah. On top of the Casey complaining bit that we're seeing a lot of, I think if we did a draft of who would Bananas get in a feud with, I think Ryan would be like last on the list. And it is so funny. Every single week he just finds something new to like complain about with this guy. Like Ryan is moving out, Bananas is complaining. Ryan takes a snack from the fridge, Bananas is complaining. He hates him so much. And it is honestly like the funniest thing that they have going on right now.
Did you get a haircut?
I did get a haircut. I also didn't like style today. I was just kind of flat.
I like looked up at you for the first time and I was like, oh, yeah, no, it is true. I mean, like, look, not for me to defend Bananas and certainly not against my guy, Ryan, but it's like pretty passive aggressive and weird to like pack your bags and move out without saying anything. But like, respect, like if there's room in a room with your friends and like you guys not openly hate each other, then like absolutely move out. But I can at least understand Bananas' frustration. Again, as Derek put it perfectly last week, like, sorry, you just don't like it when it doesn't work for you. You like a lack of fairness when it benefits you. Right. So I can understand though why Bananas is grumpy at like, I have to keep going in. This guy isn't helping the team. He's doing nothing. I'm doing everything. Now he's moving out quietly. Like, grow up. I can see why Bananas hates him. That said, I'm loving it. Like, I love how perturbed Bananas is. And the edit is being so mean to Bananas.
Is it? I don't know. I think it's
the way they fast forwarded his accomplishments. Like, they were I have a great podcast. I win. Like, they were making him look like a baby.
Yeah, no, that part was. But I think there's probably a lot of people that are like, yeah, it's not fair that Ryan gets to like skate by and doesn't like toss himself in and all that stuff. I think there's probably a segment of the Twitter sphere that agrees.
I just said that, right? Like, I agree. Like, I actually think this is sort of justified for Bananas to be annoyed. But I do think, especially like the framing of it last week by Derek is not really favorable to Bananas. And the fast forward edit through his accomplishments to me is like not usually the edit Bananas would get. I'm like, wow, they're really, compared to the CT pro tips, like he's the GOAT guy. Bananas is like getting yada yada as he brags about everything he's done in the challenge was like hilarious to me.
How was that prompted, do you think, in confessional? Do you think they were just like, Bananas, talk about some of your accomplishments, or do you think he just started to go on a list? Because it did feel so out of place that he just started listing off all the things he was so good at. I think I might have set him up for that one.
I don't think it's that hard to get Bananas to like. I would guess that Bananas needs very little by way of prompting in the confessional room. Like,
probably true.
I feel like he was saying like Ryan doesn't. I forget what the context was, but there was like a slight context of like, I want all these things. I don't know. I just believe that Bananas would do that and probably has done it many times. And that's why the edit is like, let's fast forward him.
And I mean, and to give Bananas credit, I mean, it did kind of work a little bit jumping to the end. Like, Ryan does volunteer, and he honestly volunteers at like the worst possible time because there's only 3 men that are up for big targets. So bullying worked.
Yeah, I do wonder if like Rachel and Ryan had a conversation about it in advance, like, because Rachel wouldn't have picked Ryan, but I don't know if like they had a pre-conversation about like about anything, about like
Yeah,
it would be good for Rachel's game to not pick bananas, if he felt like stepping forward with Laurel would like maybe protect him, if he thought there's a likelihood we'll shake it up because Rachel's down to one, or if it worked
yeah,
with bananas. I
yeah.
I don't want to believe that bananas stuff would work on Ryan because he just seems so steadfastly not caring about
Hmm.
what bananas has to say. So I wonder if there was like other
Could
factors
have
at
been.
play.
Could have been.
Or maybe he thought if he volunteered without Laurel, Laurel would throw the challenge. But if Laurel's up, like bananas and Laurel aren't going to throw the
Right.
challenge if she's also a target.
Right, because he told Banana said to Laurel, like, don't volunteer, which could also mean like I know where they're going, so like don't volunteer because I know Ryan's gonna be picked and maybe someone else, but end up still being Laurel. So
True. What I would like to more information on, if you should ever get to talk to Laurel or Ryan at some point in the exit
I could
press,
be so blessed.
I guess we'd really need Ryan's opinion. I know he's pretty active on Instagram talking about things that have happened, but we get Laurel's perspective on what happened between her and Ryan, and
Hmm.
she's like, "Well, Ryan blames me for Nicole annoying the crap out of him and texting him nonstop." Like that can't possibly be the story. Like that just like doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense.
It was also weird because they obviously edited it back to All Stars and they made it seem like Laurel and Nicole had their falling out during All
Yeah.
Stars, but they had their rekindling during All Stars. So like obviously they don't have footage of their falling out in between seasons, but it was odd that it made it seem like it happened during All Stars and like that also escalated the Ryan part of it. It was like during that season when it was obviously after that season. So that was a little bizarre. And yeah, I mean, look, maybe Nicole's like an annoying texter and that really is the precipice of it because that could be really bad.
No chance. Like, why would Ryan end his friendship with Laurel over Nicole texting him? Like, that just, I'm sorry, it makes no sense and is something completely that Laurel would say. It's like how Kara somehow deserves her abuse, you know? Like, Laurel twists that stuff all the time. I think Ryan's version of the story that we got, at least on TV, I thought was like, Laurel thought I took Nicole's side in the aftermath, which
Mm-hmm.
feels way more likely. And maybe the truth is in the middle of like Ryan did take Nicole's side and that was like a betrayal. But Laurel's version of the story just makes no sense to me. Does not scan, like declined.
Unless, I don't know, maybe Nicole just sends like a lot of TikToks and she follows up like, "Did you watch this one yet? What's your thoughts?" And you don't like it. You don't know. Maybe Nicole's that bad.
But like if you were an annoying texter, I wouldn't blame Emily, you know? Like it's just like
Mm,
it's just a B didn't block Nicole. And I
mhm.
still don't get that logic of it.
It could be, probably. Honestly, Laurel's not the most reliable narrator amongst most things, so I'm sure not quite right.
And then before we get to the daily, Derek hatches a little scheme. Derek staying scheming to be like, before we see the daily, so there's still a world you think me and Rachel could win.
Right.
Eras 2 and 3, given that it's Derek on one side and Avery on the other, are going to automatically pick
Yeah.
the team that does not win between us two. So why don't we at least do the same? And it ends up being a good idea because it's a daily where eras can work together. So good on Derek for making a
Yeah.
last ditch effort here.
Yeah. It was just a tough scene because I mean Theo is obviously like 7 foot tall and Derek's like 5'5". So it was just like maybe they should have been sitting down. For the producer, got to give Derek a heads up. Like maybe change the eye level of this conversation. This feels like a big moment. It's just like a very awkward conversation for Derek to be like this, Theo to be like this. It was a little tough, but like it's worth a shot. It's probably more worth it for Derek. I don't know what Theo was really gaining. It was like very unlikely that Rachel and Derek would win the daily. If anything, that could it's the type of thing that we saw in the past that if you just reach out to a deal, it could blow up in your face. Be like, oh, these people had a deal. We should just vote them in anyway. So it was probably a little more risky from the Theo side of it. But to his point, he doesn't really have anyone anyway. So it's not like he was betraying many people, even if it came down to it. So probably a no harm, no foul type thing to take a shot at.
Yeah, I guess the only way it hurt Theo really is that like when Devin tries to broker a deal in the remaining people, like Theo is like, well, I can't make that deal. And he ends up winning anyway, so it's fine. But
Mm-hmm.
like, you know, that's something like maybe he didn't need his hands tied in that
Right.
moment. If he could make like a last ditch effort to save himself. You could see if like that went the other way, which it easily could have, and era 3 won. then they just like have all their excuse to throw in Theo and Jenny.
Right. Also, you could just lie, Theo, and say you're going to make the deal and back out from someone. I think that's also allowed. Like, there's no signed contracts with these like pseudo agreements. Like, you could lie.
You could, but it's tough though because you're having to do it in front of the whole house. I mean, I think that's what happens in Big Brother too. Not that I have watched that recently, but just like when you're pressed to make a deal in front of the whole house, then what's stopping Derek if you lose from being like, well, he also made a deal with me. Like, you can't trust him. Like it's just like it's not a great look. It probably would have been a little limited consequence because like what power does Derek have? But like
Right.
still a tough spot to like make a deal in front of the whole house that you're gonna snake on potentially.
Probably.
Welch on. But let's talk about the sponsored daily. Oddly, no like true, authentic gladiator imagery. Like I was surprised we didn't like see anything related actually to the movie, but apparently this was sponsored.
Yeah, and not by Burger King. So is Burger King pulling back their marketing expenses? That's not a great sign for the economy if that's the case. You hate to see it, but Gladiator is in the mix. TJ, I would love to know how many takes it took for them to be super excited for all the names that they were listing off. I'm sure they're pretty like, yeah, you got to be pumped. This is it. This is the people. You got to be so excited. Gladiator sponsorship, though. Good for them.
Did this make you want to get Burger King? I was actually talking to someone who works in marketing the other day, and I was like, well, my co-host, every time, when it's rare, but every time there's a Burger King sponsorship, he's like, it worked. I got Burger King. Did having another sponsored challenge that wasn't Burger King, but that made you think of Burger King work? Did you get Burger King tonight?
No, I did not. It didn't.
Okay.
And if anything, it made me mad at Burger King. Like come on. This is it. This is your moment. Like, where's your sponsorship for the challenge? Do we even like Applebee's and Survivor, Burger King and the challenge? Like, this is the partnership. I don't want to see Gladiator. I'm not going to go see the movie. That's not happening. It's also supposed to come out for months.
Well, it comes out. It comes out November 22nd. I looked.
That's basically months.
Because I was like, can't we get TJ 2 tickets? Like, he has to grub later and ask the winners of the elimination if he could go with them. I'm like, we can't get this guy a pair of tickets for the.
That was funny though. Yeah, but we got the daily. It's Gladiator sponsorship called Battle for Honor. Done in 2 heats, men and women, all in kind of a giant mud pit-ish type thing. Had to knock each other out into water. Whichever team has the least amount of people left automatically goes in. Whoever has the most amount of people left wins. I didn't love the rules, especially because I didn't really know what the rules were as it was going on. They kind of just said like whoever has the most wins, and I didn't realize. I guess I should have that it was going to be a combined effort from the men's heat, but I thought it was going to be like whoever wins the men's heat is the winner, and the women's heat is the winner, and then they would decide a tiebreaker after. I don't know, but it's not great. Like, I don't know how Derek and Rachel could win/not lose this one when they're only starting with one. Like, maybe there should have been a proportional mix or something like that. I don't know. I feel like they could have done this one to make it a little more nuanced.
Yeah, I agree. I like had to go back and be like, how many men and how many women are left from each one? So just to level set, obviously, era 1 has 1 man, 1 woman. Era 2 has 4 men and 3 women. Era 3 has 3 and 3. And era 4 has the reverse. Era 2, 3 men, 4 women. So the other eras are quite evenly matched, maybe give or take 1 person. Era 1, especially with it being timed, like I also thought like, okay, it's gonna have to get down to just 1 person,
Right.
And that would be a different story than if they cut it at 20 minutes. Like, so that means Rachel and Derek both have to be the only people that survive, and they only have 20 minutes to do it.
Yeah.
Completely drawing dead. You might even, if it was any 2 other people besides Rachel and Derek who would never do this, it's like they shouldn't even participate and risk further injury. They should just sit and watch and disqualify themselves. Like, this was such a fail in terms of the format for me. Like, you had no chance of them winning.
Yeah, no chance of them winning. There was I guess a slight chance they could not lose if the gang up on one of the eras fully worked and they were able to wipe all of them out, and like Derek and or Rachel were able to survive. But even that's still pretty unlikely, especially because it seemed like it was much more difficult to knock people out maybe than they thought. I don't know, maybe there should have been a more narrow playing field, or maybe like the mud allowed them to it was harder to get traction to knock people off, but it seemingly shouldn't. It should have been easier to knock people off. Is my point, and then seem to lead to this.
And the last time they did like a King of the Hill kind of challenge, it was like suspended in air on a kind of small platform. So yeah, people were more easily able to like go off. But yeah, even if some of the eras wanted to team up like against era 2, era 3, era 4, whatever, each team had enough people just on their own to be like, well, let's just immediately get rid of Rachel and or
Right.
Derek if that's what we want to do, so that we're at least not in last place. I don't think
Yeah.
anybody did that, but like they could have done that.
I'm surprised they almost didn't do that, especially from like if Era 1 was kind of working with Era 4, or yeah, Era 1 would have been working with Era 4. Yeah, I'm surprised like Era 2 and 3 weren't just like, well, let's just knock Derek out. So like worst case scenario, they're last and we can battle out from there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm surprised no one really thought about doing that.
And then we talked about this, but Laurel helping out Kara with Tori. I mean, it's an interesting switch considering that Kara was a target. So I guess Laurel has sort of changed her tune, at least temporarily, on like her focus being getting Kara out.
Yeah, that was weird. Because again, she has a confessional like, well, like of course I'll have Kara's back. It's like it's not of course. What are you talking about? Like you haven't had Kara's back at all. It's like very back and forth. It's impossible to keep track of where she stands. This one seemed like it would be very hard to like you would have to just start knocking out your own team, which would have been unbelievable to watch if Laurel just started to turn the tables amongst her own era, which would have been funny. But like that would have been kind of almost like too over the top. I don't think even she could start pulling that off. So it's like with this one, you might as well try to win anyway and just like go from there.
Yeah, no, it's true. Era 4 wins. They have 6 players left, which I think is like they only lost one person, so good on them. So we know it's gonna be Corey and Avery going in, or Kara and Derek, which I thought would be very interesting because Rachel, I think, would rather go against Avery, but Derek would probably rather go against Derek. So I was very curious to see if we were going to have a difference. Like, obviously, Era 1 each week has been like, we have no preference. But here, I think there is a material difference between the teams, and it's different by gender. We end up seeing Derek like fall on his injured sword and say, like, let's prioritize Rachel's needs. But I thought that could have been an interesting
Yeah, no, and I thought like Kara kind of preempts it with her relationship with Theo. And I feel like that had to play a much bigger part than they're evening out. Because if I'm Jenny, I feel like all the pitches of like Derek being like, well, I want to prioritize Rachel staying, so let's throw Avery in. Like that should have been bells going off, ding, 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 ding. Like, oh yeah, let's knock out Rachel or Kara here. That's incredible for me. Let's try to get one of them out. And I thought Theo would be like, no, like I can't do that to my girl. Like, like I have Kara's back here. I want to like protect her. I thought that was going to be more of the dynamic that we got. So I was surprised that really didn't seem to play much into it, unless it kind of just happened behind the scenes that we didn't really get to see it play out. But I thought that was really going to be the big push of Jenny being like, oh, this is my great chance to knock out one of the strongest female competitors, and Kara relying on her relationship with Theo to try to back her up. But that didn't really play out like that.
No, that's a good point. That like Kara kind of makes a little comment like, oh, she wants Theo to know she can trust her, he could trust her, but we don't really get into that. And I'm thinking back, like Jenny, I think had relationships with at least Era 1, despite Casey's criticism, because we had that moment with her and Anissa. So maybe she has built a relationship with Rachel, and Jenny's not so focused on getting rid of a Kara or a Rachel. She's just sort of like, well, where can I survive?
Right.
She doesn't strike me as someone who's A, really strategizing, or B, really worried about physical threats.
Yeah, and it was tossed out like Jenny's like working with Era 2, but even if that's true, that's really just Bananas, and obviously Bananas and Kara aren't working together, so I don't even know why that would really play into it. So that it in itself also was a little confusing.
And then let's talk quickly about the dust up that happens between Derek and Corey. I mean, I didn't even really understand this. Like, all I could really chalk it up to was like testosterone from like beating the crap out of each other in the challenge, and then you like step out frustrated and you're just like accidentally having a fight with someone.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they really fully showed it, but I guess maybe Derek hit Corey when his back was turned or something like that. But yeah, this was all just like after the football play, like people were just like jacked up and just like throwing haymakers at each other and screaming and yelling and come at me, bro, type thing. And then it was kind of escalated from there. I don't think it was really that deep at all. It was very much just a male on male ego type thing.
And I think like the back is turned thing is like because Derek throws his life jacket at Corey. I mean, Corey, I think, gets in Derek's face, and then Derek's response is to throw the life jacket on his back, which like was all stupid. This whole thing was stupid. Ego is the enemy. It comes up later, kind of unbelievably. I'm like, is this the new pasta? Like, Corey
Yeah.
needs to stop fighting about things that don't matter.
Yeah, like I'm sure each of them have their own level of frustrations through this. Obviously, Derek is frustrated that he's injured. He feels like no matter what he's going to try to do, there's probably like a time limit. Obviously, it's this episode, but there's probably some level of time limit of what he's able to accomplish this season because his knee is actually busted up. Corey is super frustrated because he has nowhere to go. His own era, like doesn't really want to work with him. Era 4 doesn't want, like he's got nowhere to go, so that's a level of frustration, and it just boils up amongst each other. So that was just the wrong place, wrong time for each of them.
Amen. All right, let's get to the deliberation. These were some interesting pitches, but I think the biggest question coming out of this or going into it, whatever, is like, should Derek C have volunteered to go in to save Avery to repay the favor or repay the debt that was created when Avery stalemated with Tony Time to save Derek C?
So it's a great question. We'll get to that right after this. All right, we're back. So for Derek, like I think he makes a good point in the sense of if he was in power, obviously he's not going to throw in Avery. He would do what he can to save Avery. I think the difference here, I don't know if he would even have done it if he was an individual, but he's also not an individual. He can't turn to Laurel and just be like, well, not Laurel. Who's the to Kara? I'd be like, sorry, Kara, I have to repay a debt, so we're going in. Like that's just not going to fly. So he could try to spin it. Like again, if he was an individual, I still don't think he would have done it, honestly. But you can't just throw Kara under the bus like that, and Kara would fight back and be like, no, dude, we're not doing that. So I think it's not a true apples to apples situation to be able to pull it off. So I can't blame him for not doing it.
Yeah, that's a really good rational point and what Derek should be saying, because I'm in the irrational place of like, or even like the less evolved place of that, of like, he owes you nothing. Like, like nobody asked you to throw yourself in. And I think Derek would have understood if like Tony was making it so that you were going to have to go in. If you flipped your vote, I don't think Derek can really be mad at you because you both have the same level of need here. It's not like Bananas and Avery, like let's say they had a really close relationship. It's like Bananas, like you could get invited back 100 times. You don't really need this win. Like maybe there's a case to be made that like you should fall on your sword so that I can have a chance to like live out my dream on the flagship, as Avery says. Derek and Avery are really in the same boat of like they like really need to like make a statement to get invited back. Like I don't know that like it's reasonable for Avery to even have done what she did in the first instance, much less expect it in return.
Yeah, and I don't think Avery really even felt that way. Like I feel like that's just a line they had to get from her in a confessional. Like, Avery, don't you feel like Derek should have like tossed himself in? Well, I guess he could have thought about tossing himself in. Cut. Like I'm sure in some like 1% brain of hers, she might be thinking that. But if that was a real feeling, I think she would have said something to him, or it would have been much more of a stink in a confessional. I feel like she could not have expected Derek to do that.
That's probably fair. And also, like, again, if Derek was going to do that, the time was when Avery was throwing herself in, was to say, like, Avery, don't do that. I'll go in.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally.
But I wasn't thrilled, like, super impressed with Avery and later Corey's deliberation strategy of basically, like, threatening Jenny. I didn't think they did such a great job.
No, I don't think they did such a good job. And I really thought they would make the pitch that I tried to make of, like, Rachel's one of the best women here. You have Kara here. She's one of the best people here. How do you not force them to go against each other and let's knock one of them out? Like, it should not be on, like, don't worry about little old me, Avery. And you have like Corey, like, don't worry about the guys here. Everyone's about equal. So let's just like get out the top two of the, like, we'll get one of the top women and let's focus on that. I couldn't believe that, especially because it was teed up to them of Derek being like, well, I have to think about my girl Rachel here, and I think she has a better chance against Avery. I could not believe they didn't spin that around on them.
No, it's a really good point. And it was also just like, Jenny, you owe us because you've already betrayed Corey once. So if you want to get to equal footing, like they weren't even offering her a deal. They were basically like, if you want, it was Bananas to Josh. It was like, if you want to make it up to me and then I'll consider trusting you, you can do something that makes no sense for your game. It was very bizarre. Or really, like you're saying, something that makes a lot of sense for Jenny's game, but they made it seem unattractive.
Yeah.
So I really thought they did a bad job. But I also thought Derek and Kara did a bad job, and maybe like these deliberations don't matter, and we should stop spending so much time on them as an audience, like because I don't think they said anything persuasive either.
Yeah, I thought this one might have mattered, but then the way it played out of afterwards, Theo and Jenny talking, being like, "Oh, so yeah, we're voting at Avery and Corey, but let's just like how we're gonna play it, how we're gonna spin it, and who could we try to blame it on?" I thought that it could have mattered a little bit more, but I mean, Jenny was complaining at the top of the episode, like, "Oh, I don't have any power, I don't have any friends," and then she does so little with her own power and like takes herself completely out of the decision making process, doesn't even own the decision, doesn't gain any favors from everyone, tosses it up to being a fake house vote. So it's like, yeah, this is why. Because when you have position of power, you're also not even leveraging it to build a relationship. Like you gain no favor from anyone here. And if anything, you created more ill will.
Yeah, I agree. I thought the House vote was malarkey. I thought maybe like in addition to what you're saying about Theo and Kara is like the most convincing argument was probably coming from Derek and Rachel, who Theo and Jenny at least have a 1 week working relationship with, possibly more. So it's like, all right, if they want them, that makes it easy. We don't have blood on our hands. That seems to like be the focus. And I think it did make Corey look bad when Corey's like, oh, you want me and you in the sand? You want me and you in the sand? Derek's like, if you can't beat a 3-legged dog, you have no business being here. Like, damn, Derek is a monster. I agree with Rachel. And Rachel is like, Derek's the goat of the challenge. He doesn't have like the stats, but she's so right in that Derek has had the heart of a challenge goat since he stepped onto the franchise and has not lost it in the way that like you can't say that about CT every season. You can't say that about Bananas every season. You can't say that about, maybe you can say it about like Laurel. I don't know. But like Derek shows up here like an absolute maniac decade after decade. And just like him looking at Corey like an insane person and just
Yeah.
calling him out while he has a torn ACL. Now I think we could talk about it. Like that was the
Mm-hmm.
injury is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a really bad look for Corey to be so easily goaded by Derek. And it came across looking so bad, like you said. Derek turning around so wonderfully against him. It was a bad look on Derek. Derek is what, like, when they want to show like anyone can win, whoever wants it the most, like that's like Derek, like to the T. That's what the show tries to always preach of, you got to give it everything you have. You got to give it your full, give it 110%, like do whatever you can. Like that's Derek is like, you put the poster child about that. And I'm surprised TJ almost doesn't talk about him more. Like doesn't have a fascination with him more because I feel like he loves that even more than most people of giving it everything you have, all that cliche stuff. And that is what Derek is all about. So I'm surprised he's almost not one of TJ's favorites.
I mean, Derek did get his start pre-TJ. Maybe that's part of it. Like, it doesn't have the origin story, but yeah, I just like, and I don't really feel like I sleep on Derek. So I was gonna be like, but anytime you like forget, like Derek comes in and does a season, you're just like, damn, that guy's a maniac. And I mean that in the best way. I mean, I guess Challenge Mania is that way for a reason. Like he's a challenge maniac. Like he's just. This was a really, really special episode for Derek, and it comes in a long line of special Derek episodes.
Yeah, I almost wonder what the Derek story would look like if he didn't have his podcast. Would he be as connected still to this world? Like he almost, like, looking back on it, like if you're picking someone from like 15 years ago, like, oh, who would have like one of the more long-standing challenge podcasts? Like Derek would be so unlikely because like he just wasn't, like, his personality wasn't what drove him to be so popular on the show. It was like his competitiveness and his underdog status. So it's kind of like funny now to see him as like a podcast person in this world. And I wonder, would he want to keep coming back if he wasn't as connected to these people? How would he still be doing if he wasn't still in the podcasting space? It's just so interesting that he's one of like the OG people that built like an off-screen career for himself off the challenge, within the challenge world.
It's an interesting point, but it's also like, so yeah, that's fair. But it also makes the most sense because from exactly what we're saying, we're like, Derek has the heart of a rookie and like with the experience of a veteran. Like he stays hungry, he stays with like a reverence for the game. And I don't think you could have the success that their podcast has unless you genuinely had that. Right. So like, challenge podcasts come and go. Like Derek stuck around, we stuck around. At some point you have to like really love the show. And does anybody love the show as much as Derek? Like maybe not. Like maybe not.
Yeah, maybe just DJ. But even him probably not as much.
So no, this just like reignited my respect for Derek, though I've, always had respect for Derek, but just like
Yeah.
a real wow from deliberation to end here.
Mm-hmm. It was funny then to see right afterwards. I feel like they could have had a lot of fun with like an edit type thing of the jump cut to Michelle telling Devin the vote was like a sham. I feel like they could have easily had like a fun scene right before it of being like, oh yeah, this vote was very legit. It was very close. We had to go by it. Jump cut, Michelle. Oh, that vote was a total sham. Like I think they could have had more fun with that. But it is just very fun to see people from different teams, different eras with Michelle and Devin openly sharing information with each other. Like they had to know who was going to get out. Obviously, Michelle's going to tell Devin all about it. It was just very funny to see them, cuddling, before bed about like, oh, what's the hot gossip of the day? Oh, that vote that we had for that team thing was a complete sham, complete fake. So yeah, how was your day? How was work?
Yeah, trouble in Vacation Alliance Paradise for sure. Let's talk about that vote though, because like I am sort of curious as to like everyone's incentives and motivations behind that vote, because like I actually don't really get why Josh and so like the big dispute, right, is that Kyland and Michelle wanted to vote in Cara and Derek C and
Yep.
save Corey and Avery.
Yep.
That seemed to be, though, just out of their connection to Era 3 generally, not necessarily their connection to Corey and Avery directly. Certainly for Michelle.
Right. And for Kyland.
So I guess like the Naya thing still, like I still don't really get where I guess Kyland doesn't have a lot of options at this point.
Yeah.
So Josh and Casey would presumably be in that same vote and would be able to like really, Theo and Jenny's plan was like, let's tell them all the information, tell them how we want this to go, and then hopefully they'll vote with us. However, they would have had 4 votes if Josh and Casey voted with their alliance. They would have had 4 votes against Theo and Jenny and on to Cara and Derek. So explain to me why Casey and Josh so easily flipped on their alliance in this sham vote.
So I understand they've laid out that Corey and Josh have had history of working together, but Casey and Corey are not close, and Corey's not like in the Vacation Alliance. He's not close to like David and Tor. Like he's like sort of like friendly with them, but he's not like knee deep working with them. So I don't even get the Casey connection, like why Casey would be so fine working and wanting to work with Corey and save him and do all that. That part of it was a little
the
confusing.
same logic as we're supposed to be working together eras 3 and 4. Like Casey is hurting Devin and Tori by voting in Corey is I think the logic. And then they have a history, the festival connection, like they have some sort of relationship, but I think the betrayal on the Vacation Alliance is why are you taking a shot at our era in general?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then for the Josh of it is I can get it from Corey of like why he would just be so frustrated with this guy, of him always coming up to him being like, I am your friend, I got your back. And as Corley aptly points out, it's like you could say you have my back, but like quite literally every turn, whenever push comes to shove, you most certainly do not have my back. You weren't there stomping for me to stay in. You weren't there even voting for me to stay in. So like I can understand Corey's just absolute just frustration with Josh, just wanting to be done with it. But like for Josh, if Corey's like the sinking ship and people aren't really that working with him, he's like a pariah within both eras 3 and 4. I don't blame him for not jumping on board and then wanting to like save face as much as he can. But I can understand why him not wanting to stick his neck out there for Corey when seemingly Corey doesn't have it that much backing anywhere else.
I guess I just didn't view it as a neck stick out. If Theo and Jenny are dumb enough to say, let's take this to a vote, I'll vote how I want to vote. And then if you don't listen to me, then I can at least say, I didn't vote this way. It was 4-3 and they still made their decision because they're in power. And like, what are they giving Jenny and Theo, like, quote unquote, what they want? Like, yeah, we'll support you. I'll vote in my friend to make you look less bad. Like, Why is he afraid of Jenny and Theo, at least as long as they're on his team? And Casey should want what you were saying before. Casey should want Cara and Rachel to go in. So I don't even get like how this benefits them at all and why they wouldn't at least be like, it's nothing to put your hand up. Hey guys, we want to put this to a vote.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, all right, well, I'd rather my friend not go in, but I still respect your decision. But if you're asking for me for my vote is not the way you want.
Yeah,
I didn't understand the repercussions there.
Yeah, I guess what Josh was thinking, that I think what he was trying to say to Corey, he just said it quite horribly, was he knew that the vote was a sham. Like he knew, and this, I think it was in Josh's logic, he knew the vote was a sham. He knew that even if it was 7-0 to vote in Cara and Derek, that was not going to be the decision. So in his mind, let me not be the outlier in my own era. Let me like keep up a face of like being a good old boy within my era. And hopefully Corey will know like this vote was a total sham and me voting against you, like there was nothing to it. But Corey, to his point, I think what you were saying, like, hey, we could at least like fake having my back. Like, sure, the vote's probably a sham, but at the very least, you could just say you have my back and like vote along with me. And if the 1% chance the vote does matter, at least you're trying to save me. And I think in Josh's mind, he didn't think Corey would think there was any reason to vote for him because he thought they would both know the vote was a sham. So might as well just go with the people in power for this week and just like fall in line.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like at least make it hard for them, right? Because if they're going to hide behind this vote, well, let's make the vote 4-3. And then maybe they'd be like, well, it's not worth like burning our era. We don't really care, like whatever. Mm-hmm. So step out in front and say that. I don't know. I think like what at least the confessionals are saying with Devin and Tori, and I don't really think this is going to make anyone not trust Josh who trusts Josh, but Josh won't go on a limb, like I don't think he does that at all. It's just like he plays scared. He's a coward, in a way I respect because he wants to get to the final. And at the end of the day, he should care more about himself than anyone in his alliance. Mm-hmm. But what's irritating is he plays the game of somebody who's like acting like they're loyal to their alliance. And that is, to Corey's excellent point, supposed to be his strength. What he lacks in challenge prowess, he's supposed to make up for in loyalty and social alliance building. So why can't you convince Theo that your team is best off working with Era 3? Like, why can't you be working for me? Yeah. And I think what Devin and Tori should be clocking is like, yes, maybe Corey's lower on Josh's list, but I think Josh would have done the same thing if it was Devin on the line too. Like, sure. I don't think Josh is coming out in front for anyone. And that's what people need to like have their eyes open to.
Yeah, and I wonder if what Josh was thinking, because we saw them all kind of hint at it after this elimination, if they thought the game would kind of break open and be a new format. Maybe he doesn't want to like create an enemy out of Theo, even though right now they're on the same era. Like, give it 12 hours, they all of a sudden might be on different teams, and now Theo's like coming after Josh because he tried to make him look bad. So maybe in his mind, he's like, let me not cause wave with someone like Theo, who all of a sudden might be in a big position of power in the later half of this game. Let me just try to squash this with Corey, thinking it wasn't that big a deal, and turned out to be a big deal.
Yeah, and it's also like he's not alone, right? Like, I don't think Michelle and Kyland have any worse relationships now with Theo and Jenny than they did before this quote unquote vote. So it's like, yeah, I mean, I didn't really understand this from Josh like at all, and I didn't really understand anybody's incentives here besides maybe Theo being close with Cara.
Yeah, that's the biggest X factor that I think mattered a lot. I would think mattered a lot, unless they really aren't that close anymore. But I feel like they gave the confession of Cara being like, I'm relying on my relationship with Theo, so I feel like they wouldn't have included that if it didn't actually matter.
Yeah, I mean, it's like tough when we see like Paulie's last interaction with Theo, and like I can't imagine Theo and Cara have spoken much in the last 5 years, but like, whatever. And Theo doesn't really have anyone else. So it's interesting. All right. Let's get to the arena, I guess. I was very surprised to see a sponsored arena, double sponsorship.
Double sponsor. I mean, obviously, maybe that's why, because Burger King only sponsors the daily, and they got like two for the price of one with Gladiators, so you got to keep it up. So you got a Gladiator sponsored elimination. Very fun one, I thought. So you have a striker and an evader. One of the evader is blindfolded with targets on them, with, as TJ would say, the squeakiest shoes you will ever hear, plus some bells. You have to run around a circle, avoid the striker from popping all your targets. I think there were 20 of them, and it's whoever pops the most in the fastest amount of time.
We once again get information from Rachel, very Sarah-esque again, of just like, Sarah, what's her last name? The
Rice?
one that Bananas robbed, yeah, is like, well, I'm actually a black belt. Like, I feel like every time Rachel has to do an elimination, it's like, well, I don't know if you know this, but I was a 3-sport varsity athlete. Like, I don't know if you know this. Like, I threw ninja stars for a living. Like, I just think like it's incredible that she has all of this relevant athletic experience.
Yeah, I mean, this was a very fun elimination. I think they obviously did something kind of similar in the past with being blindfolded. I think it was when they were in pairs and like the partner would have to call out when to swing like the fencing stick to the opponent. So it was kind of similar to that. It was cool to see all the different strategies. I mean, I have absolutely no idea what Avery's strategy was. Her strategy was just to like get beaten to a pulp, which didn't really work. It would have actually been very fun to see Derek C in this elimination because he is that type of fleet-footed, moose, quick, shifty guy that I feel like he could have done pretty well in this if it ended up being Derek versus Derek Crime here.
Did you say
It would have been kind of fun.
fleet-footed?
I don't know. I couldn't think of it. Is it not fleet-footed? Is that a word? I think
It
that's
might be fleet-footed.
fleet-footed. I think it means like you're quick on your feet. I think.
Let's
I don't
see.
know.
Yeah, nimble and fast on the seats. There you go. Learn something new every day.
Let's go. Okay.
All right, Casey, relax. Yeah, that definitely would have been interesting. I mean, look, taking Avery first, I was trying to think like, is it an advantage to be one of the roles first? Like, I think honestly, Avery just was like a total deer in the headlights.
Yeah.
But I would be too if I had like Rachel like throwing haymakers at me. You know, like she was just like giving her the biz. It was tough to watch.
Yeah, I think probably being the evader first amongst all four is probably the worst spot to be because that's the one that requires like the most level of strategy, kind of like how to avoid people. So I think you would want to see how someone else does it. But I feel like the only strategy is you just run around and move and you play to the person being blindfolded. Like that's what you play into is they can't see you. So like move around. I think Avery was too gung-ho of like, oh, the bells and the shoes make it so obvious where I am.
Yeah.
That she was trying not to move when all you got to do is hear where you are for once and you know exactly where the person is. You got to just run around and, you know, do some darting around. Like, but that's not what she did, unfortunately.
And I would have had the same gut instinct as Avery, but I think she, you know, and then she was just getting, you know, blows rained upon her. So then I think it was like tough to like adjust to that. But if it were like a bigger area, I think her method would have been good of like slowly evading like Rachel swinging in the wrong direction. But they were in like a playpen. Like they really, you just didn't really have to like try swinging hard to hit somebody. There was nowhere to really hide. So you just had to be moving. Yeah,
you had to be moving, which Avery was not. Rachel was. She did a good job. So that one wasn't much of a contest that we get, you know, they didn't obviously reveal the results until afterwards, but pretty clear that Rachel had this one in the bag. The men's heat was obviously much closer. This one did play into Derek's skill set, or not skill set, but like it didn't impact his injury as much as you would think. I think
did it not? Like, I mean, the whole point of it was to move around quickly.
But there's always some level of an elimination to like move around. I think at least here it's like a shorter area, so it maybe doesn't matter as much. I mean, it's not like they're running back and forth, climbing over things, like moving through. Like, I think in the grand scheme of things, is probably. I think this is one of the better eliminations he could have had, given an ACL tear.
I mean, if it was like the elimination against Jordan when he was like the mercenary last on Battle for the New Era, and it was like running back and forth to like hit lights over like a half pipe, like fine. Yeah. But I think last week would have been better for him, you know, like with moving the pipes and doing and like moving the doors. Like, I think the real key to this was running quickly on both sides of it, really, being the evader and the seeker, whatever it was. I think it's really a credit to Derek because I think Derek made it look easy. I think having a torn ACL and doing this and finishing within seconds of the other person, or even if it was a minute, like keeping it close is like quite unreal to me. Like, yeah, I just thought I was really blown away by this.
Yeah, I mean, doing anything with a torn ACL is crazy. It's almost to the point where I was worried it was get to the point where they would just have to, like, he was going to win this elimination and they still were going to have to pull him. And it would be like, at a certain point, I know Derek's never like his leg would literally have to be chopped off for him to be like, I'm out. But it's also a certain point for competitive integrity of the game. Do they pull him themselves? I thought it was almost getting to that point. I'm glad. I'm almost kind of glad he lost because again, like he's not gonna win this season. Like that was just not gonna happen. And it was felt like it was almost going to get to the point where they would just had to remove him. So I'm glad, especially it was Corey. Like Corey's one of the big focal players of this season. I would have been really bummed to lose him here. So as great as this Derek ride was, I felt okay. Like, all right, this is his time. This is his time to go.
I totally agree. I agree with everything you said there. Yeah, I also don't know if I said this. I think you said, like, I loved this elimination. Like, I thought it was so successful, so fun, so interesting, so different. I really liked this elimination. And I loved the sportsmanship between Derek and Corey. Like, they came in and Corey's all like, it's personal, it's personal. And I thought, like, he was like, the heart you come in here is the heart I want to come in here with. And Derek's so cute. Like, thank you for this opportunity. Like, it really it was the reverse of the daily, right? It was like toxic masculinity, like fighting ego. Here, they just beat the crap out of each other and they just have like a lot of respect for the game and for each other. I really was just like falling in love with the challenge all over again watching this.
It was great. It was great. It was, and then so when TJ reveals the winner, he really does Avery kind of dirty here because obviously I think there was 20 of them, and he goes to Avery. Avery, you got them all except for 6, which is like not a good score. Like that's what is that, a 70%? Like that's a C. It's a C minus. It's not that great. So kind of set her up for failure there, and then cues Rachel up to the Rachel. You got all of them. Period. You just got all of them. So congratulations. So yeah, but obviously it wasn't gonna be that close, clearly, and so Rachel gets the win.
Someone had to tell TJ, like, when we come off of an elimination like this, even Avery, who, obviously didn't do as well, but like really, just being in the ring and taking just punches to the face from Rachel blindfold, so she doesn't even know how far or close she is. She's just swinging with all her might at your face. Like, I think she deserves her flowers for even just like standing there and getting any off her, So we didn't need TJ shtick, because I also bothered me when he was like, all right, Derek and Corey, you both got them all. And Corey did it faster. Like, dude, just like they don't do that at the Olympics, Imagine if they were like, and US, Russia wins. Like, we don't need to do that. Like, these are athletes. Like, just like give them the results and let them take it on the chin.
Yeah, we don't need the Ryan Seacrest moment here. The winner is David. So yeah, we didn't need that. But it was sad to see Derek go. He took it, like you said, took it like a champ. They hugged it out, had a great moment. And then we were set up for. I really thought the way TJ starts this up of, all right, we're gonna start with era 4. You're gonna Derek, Corey, you're gonna pick a woman from era 4. I'm like, all right, here we go. We're picking teams, baby. Let's get this draft underway. And then no, they're just like picking targets. And then it gets, obviously we'll get to the other ones, but Rachel's just back on her own, no target. Seemingly, I don't think she's even a target. I think she's just like doing her own thing next week.
Well, they did put her in the graphic when they said the targets. Like they dropped.
Oh, they did. Okay.
Yeah, but they didn't say. But it was just like in the graphic. Yeah, I thought the same thing. I was like, oop, he didn't say pick someone to be a target. He just said pick a woman. Very Billy Eichner, name a woman. And we do get the like kerfuffle between Corey and Rachel. Like, we thought we were changing. But again, with the volunteering, I still kind of think they think something different is going to happen. Like for Ryan to volunteer, for Devin and Tori to volunteer. I mean, there no real options. Like Jordan and Nia just went in, but I still kind of thought like, I think something is up. We'll see, but I think something is up. One other thing I wanted to say about Derek quickly is just like when he was like, I wanted to shock the world today and I wanted to entertain, I wanted to win. Like, I still think he shocked the world and he entertained with this injury. I just can't say enough about how blown away I was from Derek from this episode.
Yeah, very impressive. And honestly, I know you said like Derek usually brings it every season, but I feel like there was a bit of a fall off in some of his All-Stars appearances. I know he made like the final even in All-Stars 1, but that was kind of like a poor showing. He was like purged out first in that final. So like I feel like there was some fall off with Derek. So it was great to see, vintage Derek this season, obviously beating Mark and Paul Russell, pulling off a great win against Horacio, almost pulling off this win here against Corey. This was like vintage Derek to a T. This season, which was a lot of fun to say.
True. He always comes in with the heart. You're
Oh,
not
so
always going to
that's
get the
always the
results.
case.
Yeah. Drinking game. I have a rule this week.
All right, let's get to the drinking game. We got the great Kyle Picard sent it over. We have 13 from last week. 2 people volunteered to be the target, Avery and Theo. 2 people, family analogy.
This week's going to be like bing, ba, bing, bing, ba, bing, bing, bing.
What was family analogy? Oh, just like people describe it.
Anyone mentions their family.
Okay. Naya called Nehemiah her brother, and there was an Auntie T. I don't know who Auntie T is. But there was those 2.
Oh, the family analogy. Sorry, that's mine too. Anytime
Yeah.
someone makes a sibling analogy, like you're like my sister, you're like my brother. He's like a dad to me.
That makes sense. 2 of the pictures in the house coming to life. 4 times people talking about their kids or family, and then 3 times the location was mentioned. How about that?
Yeah, the building was a big one for that. It was like the tallest building in Vietnam. I would like to add anytime someone says I do X. So exactly what we were talking about with Rachel. Like I'm a black belt. Tina, like I'm a carpenter. Like I do home improvement. Like anytime someone brings up their hobby as a reason of why they're going to be good at the challenge.
I like that. I'm going to go with anytime someone else chimes in on Laurel or Cara and how they are together. Anyone talking about them?
Okay, to like together though. So like Ryan talking about disliking Laurel wouldn't count. It's like speaking on the Laurel.
They're dynamic. Conflict. They're dynamic.
Okay, that's good. That's interesting because we really like haven't checked. Thankfully, we really haven't checked in with them in a long time.
I feel like it's coming. That's why I want to get it on the books right now because I feel like we're going to swing back around. Like we've had a couple of weeks off and it's going to swing right back up, right in our face.
That's fair. I just want to take a moment of gratitude to say it didn't absorb all of the remaining episodes since, at least.
Yeah.
At least there's that.
Was there anything from most people volunteered? Obviously, we've already talked about, but Ryan then volunteered. Laurel, the only one who didn't volunteer was Laurel, who ended up still getting picked after being told not to volunteer. So I don't know if there was anything of note.
Yeah, it's interesting with like, so who else was up for that? It would have been Aviv and Cha. I obviously closed my notes. I was like, oh, we're done.
Well, I guess Cara couldn't be a target. So I think that's it, right? It was just Laurel or Aviv.
Yeah, so it would have been Aviv or Laurel. So it's a weird pick, honestly, for Corey to pick Laurel because he should be wanting like strong women, like he's not really incentivized for that. Mm-hmm. But maybe Aviv is working with him, or like Nehemiah and Corey are working together and Nehemiah is not working with Laurel. So maybe that was like the shot there.
Heavy hitters for the women. I mean, obviously now that like, no offense to Avery, but with like Avery being gone, like we're really zeroing in on like the heavy hitter women. Like going forward, all the women eliminations are going to be like off the charts. Like this week for the targets is Casey, Tori, Laurel, and if Rachel can be eligible to be voted in like her, like that's 4 heavy hitters right there. Obviously Jenny and Cara are still in the mix. So we're really going to have some top-notch women matchups down the road.
I mean, that's the best silver lining, I think, to go out with on if there is no change before next week and we have just a straight episode, like at the beginning of the episode or whatever, at least we're going to see an absolute banger of a female elimination regardless.
Yeah. That should be exciting.
There's that.
All right. You can subscribe, roboswebsite.com/challenge feed. Follow me on Twitter, Cohen _, TikTok, challenge wrap-ups. Follow you.
Can't follow me anywhere. Join us in the Facebook group. Having fun there. Leave us a 5-star review if you liked it. Leave us a review, whatever. The same site that Brian said, wherever you get your podcast, but we only see it on Apple because I still don't really understand how to check the Spotify reviews despite great efforts.
I don't think you can, right? I don't think you're allowed to like read them.
Who are they writing them for then? Like, what is this for?
It's creedthoughts.com.
And then we did drop an episode of New Girl Old Guy with the great Alex Chester. So, check that out. Only like 20 more episodes to go. Wow. Get them while they're hot.
Exciting stuff. We'll be back next
maybe
week.
Maybe more like 15, 10.
Even less. All right. We'll be back next week for episode 9. Till then, have a good one.